If you have these 5 traits, you've suffered too much. Some scars are visible, jagged lines etched onto skin that speak of battles fought and survived. But others run deeper, hidden beneath the surface, shaping the way we see the world and ourselves. Suffering leaves its mark, not just on the heart, but on the very fabric of who we are. If you've suffered too much, you know it. Not by the wounds you carry, but by the traits you've developed. These traits become your shield and sword, your means of navigating a world that has shown its teeth. Have you ever wondered why you care so much, even when it hurts? Or why you insist on doing everything yourself, even when help is offered? Why you chase perfection as if it's the only thing that can give you peace, or why you guard your emotions like treasures that no one can touch? Perhaps you've felt the need to control everything, fearing that if you don't, the world might crumble around you. These aren't just quirks. They are the imprints of suffering, the fingerprints of pain that refuse to fade. This isn't about labeling yourself as broken. It's about understanding how life's hardships have molded you, shaped you into someone resilient yet tender, cautious yet daring. Each of these traits tells a story of battles fought in silence, victories earned in the shadows, and resilience that refuses to quit. Let's delve into these 5 profound traits of those who've suffered too much. Perhaps in their description, you'll find pieces of yourself or someone you love, and begin to see that even in the pain, there's an undeniable beauty. 1. Heightened empathy. There's something remarkable about people who have walked through fire and emerged, not unscathed, but transformed. Their hearts seem to resonate at a different frequency, like instruments finely tuned by suffering. They feel everything deeply. They can see pain that others overlook, hear cries that others dismiss, and notice when someone's smile is just a fragile mask. Heightened empathy is their gift, though it often feels like a curse. Imagine standing in a crowded room, and instead of hearing idle chatter, you're bombarded with unspoken pain. That's what heightened empathy feels like. It's walking into a friend's house and knowing instantly from their posture that they've had a rough day. It's sensing the weight behind a single word or catching the flicker of sorrow in someone's eyes. It's the ability to inhabit another person's world without an invitation, to feel their wounds as if they were your own. But empathy isn't free. Those who possess it carry an emotional toll, a fatigue that doesn't vanish with sleep. It's as if the world's sorrows collect in their soul. They become the ones who stay late after work because they know their colleagues been struggling, the ones who lend money they can't spare because they understand what desperation feels like. They're the silent heroes, but who heals the healer? The truth is, their heightened empathy stems from their own pain, from nights when they felt unseen and mornings when they woke up still longing for someone to understand. Their empathy is an unspoken promise. I will never let anyone feel as alone as I once did. 2. Hyper-independence. I don't need anyone. It's the mantra of the hyper-independent. On the surface, it seems like a badge of honor, a declaration of strength. But dig deeper, and you'll find scars hidden beneath that defiance. Hyper-independence isn't born of confidence. It's birthed by betrayal, by abandonment, by the moments when help never arrived. Hyper-independence in the small things looks like carrying your own grocery bags in one trip, even when your arms ache, fixing the sink yourself instead of calling for help, refusing to let anyone see you struggle. But it's also in the big things, saying no to relationships because vulnerability feels like a gamble, or refusing to ask for directions even when you're hopelessly lost. It's the person who's already on their feet before anyone can offer a hand, who shrinks from words like, "Let me help you," as though they sting. They've learned, through bruising experience, that relying on others often leads to disappointment. And so they've built fortresses around themselves, with walls too high to climb and gates locked from the inside. Hyper-independence feels like strength, but oh, how heavy it is to carry everything on your own. It's not that you don't want connection. Deep down, you crave it. But vulnerability feels like a gamble you can't afford. It's terrifying. What if they drop you? What if they leave? After all, you've been let down before by people who swore they'd stay, by promises that dissolved like smoke. So you keep going, convincing yourself that you're better off alone. But are you? Or is it just easier to pretend you don't need anyone than to risk being hurt again? Hyper-independence is your armor, but it's also your prison. You've mastered self-reliance to a fault, mistaking it for safety. And yet, in the quiet moments when no one's watching, you might whisper a question to yourself: what would it feel like to finally lean on someone? 3. Persistent strive for perfection. There's a fine line between ambition and perfectionism, and for you, that line disappeared long ago. To the outside world, you seem driven, focused, relentless. But inside, it's a storm. Perfectionism isn't about being the best. It's about silencing the voice in your head that hisses, "You're not enough." You rewrite texts 3 times before sending them, double-check every detail at work, and can't rest until everything is just right. But no matter how much you achieve, it never feels like enough, does it? There's always that nagging thought: if I'd just tried a little harder, maybe. But maybe what? Would the world finally see you? Would the doubts finally vanish? When you were younger, perhaps you were told, through words or actions, that you needed to earn love, that your worth was conditional. And so you learned to excel, to outperform, to make yourself indispensable. If you could just be perfect, maybe you'd finally feel safe. Perfectionism is a survival strategy, a way to regain control when life feels chaotic. If you can just make everything flawless, maybe you can outrun the fear of failure. But here's the cruel joke: perfection doesn't protect you, it just wears you down, robbing you of joy and trapping you in a cycle of self-doubt. The goalpost keeps moving, and you keep chasing, too afraid to stop and ask yourself why. 4. Emotional guarding. Don't let them see you cry. How many times have you whispered that to yourself, biting the inside of your cheek to keep the tears at bay? Emotional guarding is your fortress, built brick by brick with every betrayal, every dismissal, every time someone used your vulnerability against you. You've learned to smile through the pain, to say, "I'm fine," even when you're breaking inside. You've mastered the art of steering conversations away from yourself, of changing the subject when things get too close. It's easier to be the one who listens than the one who talks, isn't it? Because talking means opening up, and opening up means risking being hurt again. But here's the thing about walls: they don't just keep the pain out, they also keep the love out. You've locked yourself away so tightly that even those who genuinely care for you can't get in. You tell yourself it's for the best, that it's safer this way. But late at night, when the world is quiet, don't you wonder what it would feel like to let someone see the real you? 5. A desire for control. Control is your anchor in a world that feels unpredictable and chaotic. You double-check every lock before bed, triple-check your schedule, and feel a twinge of panic when plans change at the last minute. It's not about being picky or rigid, it's about safety. Control is how you keep the chaos at bay, how you protect yourself from feeling powerless again. But control is a double-edged sword. It can provide comfort, but it can also become a trap. They may struggle to delegate tasks, fearing that no one else will do them right. It stops you from taking risks, from embracing spontaneity, from letting life surprise you. You micromanage because the idea of letting go terrifies you. What if everything falls apart? What if you end up back in that dark place you fought so hard to escape? And yet, beneath their need for control lies a fragile truth. You've been at the mercy of forces beyond your control before, and you're determined never to feel that helpless again. Control is your way of saying, never again. But in your pursuit of order, you risk missing out on the beauty of life's unpredictability. Perhaps the greatest act of courage for you would be learning to let go, to trust, to surrender, to believe that not everything needs to be planned to be perfect. Conclusion: if these traits resonate with you, it's not because you're broken, it's because you've survived. These traits are the armor you forged in the fire of your struggles, the tools you've used to navigate a world that hasn't always been kind. But armor gets heavy, doesn't it? And tools, while useful, aren't meant to be clutched forever. What would happen if you started to let go? If you let someone see your scars instead of hiding them? If you allowed yourself to stumble without the fear of judgment? You've already proven your strength. You're here, aren't you? Maybe now it's time to prove something even harder, that you can let go of the weight you've been carrying and finally give yourself permission to heal.